On June 4th, Blake, Oliver, and I recorded our conversation during a quarterly call for the Sage Accountants Network. This is part one of our conversation. Part two was published simultaneously today on Blake's Cloud Accounting Podcast. You can listen to that part at cloudaccountingpodcast.com. Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. What are we going to fight about, Blake? I don't know if there's much that we disagree about, so we'll have to, come up with something.
Not too much. You've definitely got me on the home office. I'm here, a refugee from Los Angeles in Phoenix, so this is like my parents' condo that I'm staying in. I did dress up for you, though. I put on my Gap T-shirt, established in 1939.
Outstanding. Well, here's the thing, and I've said this to a lot of people. My life hasn't changed that much other than not getting on an airplane 4 or 5 times a month. For the most part, I've been here. I had a jump start on everyone in terms of the home office thing. And, I don't have to come up with a fancy, cool background because I already had one, It's like that. I designed the office intentionally this way. But just thanks for appearing with me today, Blake. I just to introduce you to the audience in case they don't know, Blake is a CPA who specializes in cloud technology and is the co-host, as Raphael mentioned, with David Leary of the Accounting Podcast, a weekly news update on some bookkeepers. In 2016 and 17, he was honored to be named CPA Practice Advisor's 40 under 40 list. But in 2019, he hit the big leagues and was named to Accounting Today's top 100 most digital people list. So, Blake, welcome to our show today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been amazing watching what's happened over the last few months with firms that are fully virtual, firms that already have embraced remote work, being able to continue essentially business as usual when it comes to their operations. Obviously, disarray when it comes to tax, when it comes to PPP, when it comes to helping clients, but at least they're not dealing with technology problems right now. And then you have, of course, the firms that had to scramble. But what has been amazing is that firms figured out how to do it, right? So after 20 years of partners saying, no, we can't go remote, they figured out how to do it.
It's impossible. It's impossible for our tax department to operate remotely. And I think I heard that for the first or second week that this broke out. And then all of a sudden, well, we figured it out. Somehow
Right.
We figured it out.
So it's really astounding how many people are working remote currently. McKinsey did a study, and they do these great reports. I don't know how they churn these out. They just must have a massive number of people working on this. They found that the share of professionals, people in professional and business services working fully remote went from 5% pre-COVID-19 to 74% during COVID-19. So 3/4 of us across all professions and business services are now working 100% remote. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. It is amazing. Now, certainly there's not going to replace for all time as I like to call it, the belly to belly conversation. We're going to need to collaborate. And I think it also helps that if you have a current team that you're working, if you know the people that you're working with, it's certainly harder to inculcate culture in organizations where you don't have a physical presence or people coming into it. But I look at, and I got to say that I was a remote employee from day one at Sage and never had a rotation that I had to go to. So it can work. I'm here 17 years, must be doing something right.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do it. I think you have to be a little more purposeful about it, right? You can't just walk around the office and establish culture that way. Although I never thought that was a really great way of, building culture was to walk around distracting people from their work. Yeah.
Management by wandering around, yeah.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting, to go back to that argument against working remotely, one of the arguments has always been that people won't be productive or that you don't know what they're doing, right? They'll just goof off and watch Netflix. And that is not true. And this is basically the biggest study of remote work that has ever been done in the history of the planet when it comes to professionals. And a recent survey by Fishbowl found that in the accounting profession, 54% of professionals are actually working more hours since the quarantine started. All professionals are working more, and some are working a lot more. So this is not specific to accounting, but just professionals in general. 19% are working 10 hours more than they were working before. And you wonder, why is that? Well, maybe it's because they're not commuting, an hour each way to work. in a lot of cases, like I was doing in LA for a while. 19%, 6 to 10 hours more, 17%, 1 to 5 hours more. Only about a quarter of folks are working any less. So another argument against remote work demolished here. What's crazy is that these professionals who are working more, you think, well, maybe they want to go back to the office after this is all over. 54% of accountants, I said, are working more hours. Well, 59% would prefer to work remotely forever.
Yeah.
So we're happy to work more hours if we don't have to commute and we get the flexibility of being at home.
Totally get that. I mean, and I think, look, I've been an advocate of what's called ROWE, ROWE, for a long time, ever since I read Jody Thompson and Carrie Ressler's book, Why Work Sucks and How to Fix It, maybe 10 years ago. And I've had a chance to have Jody more recently on my podcast, but she's got a line which I think really summarizes what we're experiencing, is we have to change our minds from thinking from work as a thing or a place we go to a thing we do, right? Mm-hmm. So work is a thing we do, not a place we go. We can work anywhere. And she says, look, if you are positioned so that the results of what your job is supposed to be are expected, and we understand what the results are, the outcomes are, well, then you don't. It doesn't matter whether you're working from home, from an office, from the Starbucks, following what's left of the Grateful Dead around, right? It doesn't matter, as long as you get the results. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I'm even seeing that people are not only increasing the number of hours, but getting higher quality results.
Yeah. One thing that I love that we do at my company. So I work as director of marketing at Giraffe. That's my day job. The podcast, unfortunately, is not quite lucrative enough to become my full-time gig yet. Someday. We have a results-oriented work environment. I do not have hours that I work. None of us, we're a startup, right? We're a software company. Nobody has time for that anyway, to manage people in that way. So I start when I want to start. I take breaks when I want to take breaks. And so I've found that my ideal flow in the day is to get 2 to 3 hours in the morning. I kind of start later than most folks, right? Get started around 9, 10, do a couple hours in the morning, take a lunch, do a couple hours in the afternoon, go to the gym, work out, swim, right? Phoenix, it's 110 degrees. That's when you get outside, you go in the water. And then I come back, have dinner, and I clock in, another 2 or 3 hours in the evening when my son is asleep. And that works great for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but I get way more productivity than if I was just sitting at my desk from 9 to 5.
For more Sage advice, visit and subscribe at sageadvicepodcast.com.